May I suggest to you, may I suggest this is the best part of your life. May I suggest this time is blessed for you. This time is blessed and shining almost blinding bright. Just turn your head and you'll begin to see the 1,000 reasons that were just beyond your sight. The reasons why I suggest to you, why I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a world that's been addressed to you, intended only for your eyes. A secret world, a treasure chest to you, of private scenes and brilliant dreams that mesmerize. A tender lover's smile, a tiny baby's hands, the million stars that fill the turning sky at night. Oh, I suggest, yes, I suggest to you, yes, I suggest this is the best part of your life. There is a hope that's been expressed in you, the hope of 7 generations, maybe more. This is the faith, that they invest in you. It's that you'll do one better than was done before. Inside you know, inside you understand. Inside you know what's yours to finally set right. And I suggest to you, and I suggest this is the best part of your life. This is the song, comes from the west to you. Comes from the west, comes from the slowly setting sun. This is a song with a request of you to see how very short the endless days will run. And when they're gone, and when the dark descends, we'd give anything for one more hour of light. May I suggest this is the best part of your life.
Wow, thank you, Vanessa Ressler, Helena Kristol, and Vanessa Cohen for the beautiful song to help us begin the mother of all non-events. And now we are about to start. But first, just a couple of quick reminders before we begin. Here's some information about starting your video, and just a reminder that we have placed everyone on mute except for our speakers. If you would like to connect with us or others, please feel free to use the chat button at the bottom of your screen. And finally, just a note that we will be switching between seeing slides and seeing only those speaking. With that, I'll pass it over to our non-event chairs.
And welcome to the mother of all non-events, the National Council of Jewish Women Miami's annual Mother's Day event. We hope you're enjoying all of your cocktails and mocktails. I am drinking a Lady Liberty, sans lemonade, as is my signature. And we are your co-chairs this evening. I am Karen Sepsenwol. Cheers.
I am Rachel Unger, as I was trying to say 30 times just a moment ago, and I am drinking the Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I am sending Justice Ginsburg much healing and strength. Salud, thank you for being here.
And I am Marissa Zarco Hoffman. I have here my mocktail and, of course, the mother of all guacamoles, L'chaim.
So at first we were planning NCJW Miami's annual luncheon and boutique, but our plans began to change and we decided to plan a cocktail party to mix things up a little bit this year. Of course, things started to get a little bit crazy and scary, and we knew that we wanted to find a way that we could still all be together and build up upon the amazing momentum taking place in NCJW Miami, even during this strange and difficult time. So bam, here we are at our virtual event, the mother of all non-events. And we just love this opportunity to see all of you tonight. And thank you so much for joining us from your couch.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for supporting NCJW Miami as we enter our 100th year. In addition, thank you for your generosity in supporting the Dignity Project. We are proud to partner with Women's Philanthropy of Greater Miami Jewish Federation by helping our most vulnerable women and girls get feminine hygiene products. We are excited for what is ahead tonight. We welcome an incredible and powerful lineup of speakers and their commitment, partnership, and support.
The National Council of Jewish Women, NCJW, is a grassroots organization of volunteers and advocates who turn progressive ideals into action. Inspired by Jewish values, NCJW strives for social justice by improving the quality of life for women, children, and families, and by safeguarding individual rights and freedom. As NCJW Miami's newest member, I am so excited to be a part of the amazing and important work that is so needed in our community, especially now. A special thank you to the members of the committee, the driving force behind this non-event, and to Amy Bloom, NCJW Miami's executive director, for her vision and perseverance to bring NCJW Miami into its second century. And now, we would like to welcome our honorary chairs, Joanie Glickstein and Sharlane Packar, who would like to say a few words.
Okay. Fran Levy, please pay attention because we'd like to begin this Mother of All Non-Events for Mother's Day, celebrating you and all that you've done for the NCJW Miami section. And now moving on to the National Board. We are so proud of you and we love you. Thank you, Fran.
And here's to all the mothers in our lives, to those who have loved us, nurtured us, raised us to be the women we are. Some of us are fortunate enough to still have them in our lives and benefit from their wisdom and support.
To those of us who are mothers ourselves, doing our best each day to provide love and guidance to another generation.
To the women mentors in our lives, whether they have touched us personally or been examples from afar in the community and the world, especially our NCJW mothers over the last 100 years.
We raise our glasses to you in gratitude and love. L'chaim.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Bloom, the Executive Director for the National Council of Jewish Women in Miami. Cheers, salud, l'chaim. The mother of all non-events has arrived. Wow, look at all of the love on this Zoom. I am so grateful for our incredible team that has made this evening and our non-event possible. Karen Kamlet and Jenni Person, our co-presidents. Our three non-event chairs. Marissa Zarco Hoffman, Karen Sepsenwol, Rachel Unger. Our honorary non-event chairs, Sharlane Packar and Joanie Glickstein. And our amazing speakers that are going to be joining us this evening. Sheila Katz, Nancy Ratzan, our panelists, Charo Valero, Gail Schwartz, Valencia V. Gunder, Ida V. Eskamani. Last Mother's Day, we celebrated 125 years of the National Council of Jewish Women's existence. We had the opportunity to hear the words of our founder, Hannah G. Solomon, who is an inspiration to all of us. This year, while we are not able to be together in person, we have the privilege to Zoom in to toast the fierce women and mothers who impact our lives and kick off 100 years of NCJW Miami with a cocktail, mocktail, and a healthy snack, all from our couches. I would like to thank our elected officials who work tirelessly on our issues. State Representative Anna V. Eskamani, who will be speaking with us this evening. And thank you, Commissioner Daniela Levine-Cava, NCJW Miami Life member and Women of Valor honoree, for joining us on our call this evening. I'd also like to thank a few very important people who work behind the scenes for us. Dean Jaffe, who works tirelessly on our books. Jessica Benitez for her design of the Mother of All non-events. Patrick Crossan, who is our technical producer, running the show this evening. Thanks, producer Patrick. And Fran Levy, who created the beautiful photo collage. A very special thank you also to our national team, who are our partners in Washington, D.C. Ari Solomon, Hannah Cohn-Smith, Lindsay Morris, Jody Rabin, Leah Singman, Faith Williams, Stephanie Ann Russell, Catherine Gibson, Jane Yamakin, National CEO Sheila Katz, who will be speaking next, and the rest of the entire team in DC. If you haven't had a chance to participate in their Zoom calls, be sure to check out the recordings from the past sessions and register for upcoming Zooms with NCJW members and allies from all over the country. Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, they'll be picking those back up in June. I'd like to highlight a couple of programs that they have coming up. One on Wednesday, May 20th, called Vote Safe Digital Lobby Day, which is NCJW's national response to the COVID-19 pandemic's impact on voting rights. You can learn more and register at the link that we are sharing in the chat box. I would like to give a special shout out to my mom, Shelley Bloom, my partner, Maria Hernandez, my Auntie Janet, three amazing women who are always there for me and who are on the call tonight. And now it's time to dive deep. Our work at the National Council of Jewish Women is as significant and vital today as it was 100 years ago. Women are still not equal in this country, and we are ready to rise above it. The issues that face women, children, and families every day, and which are NCJW's issues, are under attack. And we are learning more and more about injustices that the most vulnerable are having to face during this pandemic. Now, a year in with our board of directors, we are building our section of engaged and informed warriors to work on 4 issues we believe to be the most important right now in Florida and Miami: gun violence prevention, immigration and refugees, reproductive health rights and justice, voter and civic engagement. These are the Miami section's 4 pillars that we will focus on for the next 18 months during our centennial campaign. We will now hear from 4 justice warriors who work endless hours on these issues. They work to make our lives better and better for our children. We will learn about why these issues are personal to them and how we can help. Following this event, we invite you to dive deeper into each of these issues by joining us virtually to take action with these leaders over the next 4 weeks, beginning next Wednesday, May 13th at 7 p.m. Check out this link in the chat box for more information and to register. And now we will hear from our local activists engaged in local and statewide work representing these 4 pillars. And during each of their talks, we will post in the chat box ways to take action and support our work, which you will also find on our website when you register for our deep dive sessions with these leaders. And now I'd like to introduce Gail Schwartz. She's the chair for Ban Assault Weapons Now. Thank you so much. Welcome, Gail.
I'm Gail Schwartz. I'm chairing the statewide ballot initiative to ban assault weapons in Florida. And I want to thank NCJW for inviting me and including me in your 100-year birthday celebration. We can never forget the reason that I'm here. It only took 3 minutes for a shooter with an AR-15 at a high school in Parkland, Florida, to injure 17 and kill 17 people. My nephew, my 14-year-old nephew, Alex, was one of the victims. He was sitting at his desk in language arts class when a shooter with an AR-15 shot through his classroom door window. That is also the same weapon that was used in Orlando to kill 49 of our fellow Floridians. Those are the facts. There's no disputing it. Now the question is, if we know a weapon is capable of that type of damage and that type of carnage, do we as voters, as Floridians, deserve the right to decide on whether these weapons are simply too dangerous for the general public? The answer is emphatically yes. The opposition is perfectly happy doing nothing and allowing the bloodshed and the carnage to continue. But we are too smart for that because we know that it's our children and our loved ones' lives that are at stake. And when we see a problem, we fix it. The Ban Assault Weapons Now amendment will help save lives. Our amendment will help end the epidemic of mass shootings in our state. And we refuse to sit idly by while our loved ones are slaughtered by military-grade weapons that are designed for the battlefield. In the most powerful country in the world, we are teaching our children to hide around corners and under desks. We refuse to allow our loved ones to simply be collateral damage. 7 states and the District of Columbia have already banned assault weapons in their states. We want to make Florida the 8th state to declare that there is nothing more important than the lives of our loved ones. We know we can put an amendment on the ballot and we need to let the voters decide. 2 months ago, Ban Assault Weapons Now presented our amendment to the Florida Supreme Court justices, and we feel confident that they will agree with us. While we wait for their decision though, there's still a ton of work that needs to be done. We still need to collect hundreds of thousands of signatures and educate Floridians all across the state. And I implore you to visit our website, banassaultweaponsnowflorida.org. Please print and sign the petition. And if you're feeling generous, we would love if you would make a contribution. As you can imagine, it's very costly to organize a statewide infrastructure such as this. And with your help, we can rid our state of these killing machines once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail Schwartz, for sharing your story with us tonight. And now I'd like to introduce Ida V. Eskamani, Legislative Director for the Florida Immigrant Coalition. You may also have heard of them as FLIC.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Gail, for all the incredible work that you do, and Charo. It is such an honor to be among just so many incredible women. I am here on behalf of Florida Immigrant Coalition. I direct our legislative affairs. I work very closely with so many incredible organizations, including with Charo, on the issue of immigrants and refugees here in Florida. This work is important to me because it directly impacts me. I am a first-generation Iranian American. My parents came to America seeking the American dream. It's a story I think so many of us can relate to. My parents actually met in America. They met in Orlando, Florida. My mother came from Tehran, my father, northern Iran. They both left Iran seeking better lives. They were caught up in the Islamic Revolution as well, and so could not go back home. And so they actually met while working minimum wage jobs. They met and decided to start a family and raise a family in Orlando, Florida. So I'm the daughter of working class Iranian immigrants. The immigrant story is one that I know very personally, and it's part of our American identity. And when you see the constant attacks on immigrant communities, you know, it's heartbreaking, it's shameful, and it's un-American. You know, this country is built on a fabric of inclusivity, diversity, of seeking refuge. No matter where you're from, you should be able to find a home here. Of course, we know that the only folks who truly are from here are Indigenous people. If you're not Indigenous, you are an immigrant, right? And so the demonization of certain communities right now is, we know it's a distraction from, you know, accountability of really what's going on, why our system is rigged against us, right? And so it's so important that we don't fall for that we come together, Black, brown, white folk, we come together and demand more from our elected leaders. At Florida Immigrant Coalition, we do so much work around trying to protect immigrant communities in the state legislature, protect our DACA recipients, get folks out of detention, make sure folks who are in detention are treated with basic dignity and respect. We have citizenship workshops where we help folks become citizens. There's nobody who wants to be undocumented. They are trying to endure a broken immigration system here in America. And ultimately, a sheet of paper does not indicate your worth or your value in this country. And so, you know, for us, it's really important that we lift up all of our stories collectively as an immigrant community and as Americans. So I don't even say, you know, undocumented residents, I say undocumented Americans. A sheet of paper does not indicate that you are American. And so right now, as we wait on so many decisions in the Supreme Court, as we see more and more election rhetoric gear up, you know, we urge folks to support our efforts. Right now during COVID, folks are especially vulnerable, and there's so many ways to support our frontline essential workers, many of whom are immigrants and undocumented Floridians. And so we urge you to join us, and we're grateful for the work that this organization has already done to support our immigrant communities. But for me, it's every time I work with directly impacted folk, I see myself, I see my family, I see little Ida, not really sure, you know, why her family's different, you know, why being Middle Eastern is wrong, or you know, why my mom's accent's funny, right? These are things that to me were how I grew up, and there's so many little boys and girls who are in the same position, and so many hardworking parents in the same position. And so I think when we focus on what brings us together, we're a better society in general. And so that's the work that we do at Flick, and that's why I do this work. And so I appreciate the opportunity to share story. And my mother passed away from cancer when I was about to turn 14 years old. And so I have a deep, deep love for Mother's Day. My mom was amazing. And so just really grateful to all the mothers here for also being this amazing mom.
Thank you so very much, Ida, for sharing your story with us tonight. And now I'd like to welcome Charo, Valero.
Thank you. First of all, it's honestly a privilege to be amongst so many brilliant folks on this call. There's a lot of brilliance and resilience on this call. Kudos to the folks at NCJW for putting this together. Amazing job. My name is Charo. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Happy 100 years. Always a pleasure to work alongside you all, be it in Miami or in Tallahassee. And happy Mother's Day. It honestly, talking about reproductive health rights and justice, specifically justice, is such an appropriate conversation and an honor to have during Mother's Day. And shout out to all the women and femmes who parent and love so deeply. So to speak for myself, I do policy work at the Latina Institute. So that means that every year I essentially move to Tallahassee for a couple months and I get to work with some incredible folks like Ida and Bee. I myself am an immigrant from Panama. Actually, in 2 months, it'll be 15 years since I moved here by myself. to this country. I became a naturalized citizen about 6 years ago because of the privilege and access I've had to so many organizations and resources. I am a super voter. I am queer. I live in Miami with my wife and our 2 geriatric dogs. And I come to this work with that, right? With those responsibilities and uplifting the folks who are immigrants, who are women and queer and femmes and Black and brown. And I bring that reproductive justice framework with me, which I'll get into in a second. And the Latina Institute really gives me the space to unapologetically uplift our people and our priority in a way that feels very unique organizationally, but also is very aligned with my politics. So just to give some perspective on reproductive justice, right? It's a term that was born out of Black queer feminism. And that's important to understand, right? And that's important to center. It was coined in the mid-90s by Sister Song. RJ is about being able to make the decision to parent or not parent, to make the decisions on how you birth, if and how you birth, right? To have families and be able to raise them in safe environments, right? It's beyond reproductive rights, which looks about the legality of the laws, if you can access abortion care, you can access birth control. It's rooted in intersectionality, which I know is a term that we toss around a lot. So I welcome any discussions to really center intersectionality, the origin, the legal origin of the term, the origin of this term that is rooted in generations and centuries of Black queer feminism. It's rooted in women of color not living single issue lives. So our advocacy isn't siloed. It's not as simple. It's a lot more complex. It's a more complicated narrative. We focus on barriers, right? Unique barriers, specifically that immigrants, that women of color, that low income folks experience when accessing reproductive care, which unapologetically includes abortion access. The organization that I'm affiliated with, the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice, specifically is at the intersection of reproductive rights and health and immigration. The immigration front is where I get to do a lot of incredible work with IDA and the Florida Immigrant Coalition, and also the rep that's going to be coming up, Rep Eskamani, who is an incredible reproductive rights, health, and justice warrior amongst all the other issues that she advocates for us in Tallahassee. I encourage anybody to tune into the Florida channel and see them debate anything from schools, immigration, guns on the floor. It's a blessing to have the advocates that we have in Tallahassee. So I guess when I come into this work and we travel these, much like Ida, when we're walking in the ivory tower, I think about my grandma and my aunts and the language barriers that they face and my migration story and why I came into this country, what led us to make those decisions. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and the work that I do and why it's important. Again, thank you for having me on. Happy 100 years and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you so much, Charo Valero, Florida State Policy and Advocacy Director for the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. And now I get to welcome Valencia Gunder, who is the founder and president of Smile Trust.
Hey, Amy, thank you all so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and help you all celebrate 100 years of service. Voting engagement is super important. I mean, for many, many years, Americans have been fighting in America to have the right to vote. And we try our hardest to make sure that every American, no matter their race, religion, creed, language, or birthplace, have the right to vote here in America. I work at an organization called the New Florida Majority, which we are an organization that fights for political power and upliftment of political education in underserved communities of color. And for the last 10 years, that's exactly what we've been fighting to do. Something that most of you all may be familiar with is our fight against Amendment 4. Not against Amendment 4, for Amendment 4, to restore the voting rights of over 1.4 million returned citizens in the state of Florida, their right to vote. What is a returned citizen? A returned citizen is a person or individual who has been charged with and convicted of a felony in the state of Florida. For those who don't know, once you are a felon in the state of Florida, more than likely you will remain a felon for the rest of your life. Unless you go through the whole, process of clemency and all the good things. But here in the state of Florida, they don't really allow a lot of people to go through that process or approve other people through that process. So the Amendment 4 push was to change our state constitution so that once a person has fulfilled their sentence, paid their debt to society, they will actually have their right to participate in our voting process here in the state of Florida. We were successful. Over 60% of our state population voted in favor of Amendment 4, and it was implemented that following year, which was 2019. Even though we had some pushback and a lot of fights and everything that was happening in our state to stop people, which we call voter suppression and voter oppression, from people from voting, but overall we have been successful. Thousands of Americans here in the state of Florida have actually registered to vote. I am one of them. Back in 2010, I was convicted of passing a worthless check in Leon County, and I was convicted of a felony charge, and I lost all my rights. And when I say my rights, I cannot own or carry a firearm because of my felony. I cannot apply for different state licenses and certifications. Because of my felony before Amendment 4, I could not vote in the state of Florida. Because of my felony, I'm also usually sometimes turned down for certain opportunities like housing, for one. And because of Amendment 4, which was the first step to restore us all in this fight around voter engagement, but to restore us all back into society fully, right? They expect people to come home and after dealing with the criminal justice system to be model citizens, but they don't give them the opportunities to actually participate to become these model citizens. And also, it's also against our human and civic rights here in the United States when it comes to us having to pay taxes, but not being allowed to participate in the process of decision making, right? So it's called taxation without representation. And that's what we were fighting for, and we were successful. Florida was one of the last, 4 states in America that did not have automatic clemency or automatic restoration of rights, voting rights, after one is completed. In the state of Florida, and for the majority, we are trying to fight for more than even that. Yes, it's amazing that we have returned the citizens their rights back to vote, but we're trying to push for even people who are inside of facilities to vote, like a state like Vermont. Like we said, people are still required to pay taxes, and if you pay taxes in America, you should be allowed to vote. And that's what we've been pushing for. We engage communities all the time. We educate them on the history of voting. And we also know just 100 years ago, women were not able to vote in America. 60 years ago, Black people were not able to vote in America. And we had to fight really, really hard to change those things. And now we're trying to change the narrative around people who have to interface with the criminal justice system. And now they have their rights to vote. And now we're trying to push that even those who are in the midst of paying their debt to society, because you still have to pay taxes while paying their debt to society, that they allow to vote and participate in our electoral process. We are trying our hardest to spread the message of fair voting, voter engagement, voter suppression, and voter opportunities. That's the real way we're going to change America. We know and understand that this is not the only way to make change in America, but this is one of the ways that we are prioritizing to make change.
Thank you so very much, Valencia V. Gunder, for sharing your story with us, and all of these amazing advocates for sharing their stories with us tonight. Gail Schwartz, Ida V. Eskamani, Charo Valero, Valencia V. Gunder. Join us on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, beginning next Wednesday, May 13th. Check out our website to register and learn more about each of these advocates and the work that they're doing. And all of the information that was in the chat will be on our website as well. ncjwmiami.org/deep dive. And now I'd like to introduce Sheila Katz, the CEO of the National Council of Jewish Women. Sheila most recently served as Hillel International's Vice President for Student Engagement and Leadership. During her 12 years at Hillel, Sheila engaged Jewish students and professionals around the world through programs including Ask Big Questions and Mitzvot. Sheila was named as one of 2019's 50 most influential Jews in the United States by The Forward. Welcome, Sheila.
Thank you so much, Amy. It is so good to be here. Although I'm in Washington, D.C. and not Miami, I wish I were in sunny Miami with all of you. It is a thrill to celebrate 100 years of NCJW Miami. What you've accomplished and what you continue to accomplish is absolutely amazing. And for the last century, we have in Washington, D.C. and Miami and throughout all of the United States, led the way on so many of the issues that you just heard about: reproductive health rights and justice, immigration reform, gun violence prevention, and voting rights, to name a handful. And it's because we are one voice together, moving towards the same goal to better women, families, and children, that we're able to make such an impact. And you are each at the heart of that, whether you've been involved for 50 plus years, or whether you're one of the amazing teenagers involved in NCJW and just starting your journey. We're so happy that you're all here. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what's happening in this country right now regarding COVID-19, and then say more lovely things about NCJW Miami, because I have to, because I love you all. But as far as what's happening right now, you all know this. It's a lonely time for so many, and it's forcing us to change the way we do things. But this pandemic is not stopping us from doing the work that needs to be done. We know that coronavirus is impacting women disproportionately. Women currently make up the majority of essential workers in the United States. So as an example, 9 out of 10 nurses, 2 out of 3 grocery workers are women. And we also must acknowledge that COVID-19 has an even greater impact on women of color, who are more likely to be classified as essential workers working in low-wage jobs. And these women are already suffering health inequities, facing greater economic distress and poorer health outcomes, even in the best of times. And so this disaster screams out for NCJW advocates to engage, and truly our work is more relevant than ever. So I want to just do a deep dive into the issues you just heard and how they relate to COVID-19 and what we're seeing on the ground nationally. And so we heard from Ida about immigrants, immigration, and yes, the statistic is clear about women and essential workers, but most of the people who are working are also immigrants and illegal or undocumented. And these are communities that have already faced enormous challenges. If you've been following the relief packages work, I know many have who own small businesses. I want to just point out that immigrants were totally left out of the COVID relief packages passed by Congress. Many of the benefits just aren't available to whom they classify as non-citizens, regardless of if they pay taxes. And this includes people with legal status, including DACA recipients, and those with temporary protected status. It also includes many of the vulnerable among us, including home health care aides, child care workers, people helping run our country right now, whether it's people making food or doing food delivery, people working on farms, etc. And so it's a real issue that this money didn't go to the people who are being impacted most. And furthermore, tax-paying, undocumented immigrants will receive absolutely no stimulus relief and are not eligible for unemployment benefits if they lose their job to the repercussions of the virus. So it's really important to be paying attention to this, especially in a place like Miami where you have so many people impacted. It's a real atrocity that these people in general, this entire population was left out of the package, and we are advocating to make sure that they are included in upcoming packages. And I'll add a link in the chat when I'm done speaking of how you can sign up to support that. The second issue of gun violence, Gail, thank you so much for speaking. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your nephew, Alex. I remember reading the poem that he wrote that was shared at the funeral, and it was so incredibly powerful. May his memory be a blessing. It's really difficult right now thinking about gun violence in this country. In addition to the economic impact of the pandemic, the conditions are just ripe for an increase in mental health conditions and concerns and a rise of the threat of domestic violence. And so just in a non-pandemic month, right, when things are normal, according to Everytown, 52 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner. And we don't know the answer to this, but I wonder what that statistic is going to look like at the end of this public health crisis, when people are forced to be living in the same home as the person who's harming them. And so, you need to know that there's been a classification, right, of what's essential and what's non-essential. Guns have been deemed essential during this whole situation, which I find shocking in many ways. When staying at home, you would think of all the things you need, a gun is not one of them. And governors have determined that gun stores were essential. Many of them are remaining open throughout the pandemic. And it's truly shocking in a moment where domestic violence is at an all-time high. And so there are things we could be doing to advocate for guns to not be classified as essential in this moment, and to highlight the support that is necessary for domestic violence survivors and victims. On the topic of abortion, Charo, thank you so much for sharing reproductive health rights and justice. You know, I just said that guns are considered essential. Abortion around this country is not. And people still need abortions. Pandemics don't stop that people need abortions. And because of the back and forth that's been happening in so many states, there are days in which abortion is considered essential and days that it's not. And people are showing up at abortion clinics, finding out that they're then closed. And in many states, there are 24-hour laws. So they have to show up, wait 24 hours to get an appointment, and show back up. And it's really, really complicated for people who don't have the extra money, who don't have the time, and who are not in a position in this moment to stay at hotels, right? So there was a case in the New York Times that was shared. It was over 750 miles that somebody had to drive to go get an abortion because of the state rules that were happening. It's really, really egregious. So we are advocating for abortion to be deemed essential in this moment that you can sign on to. And you'll also start seeing a push for at-home medication for abortions, which is something that NCJW has long supported. And so I think in a moment where people have to stay at home, it's actually very important that that become available to people. And so we're gonna rally and really try to make guns not essential, but abortion essential. And I gotta end on voting. Thank you, V, for everything that you shared. I mean, you said it even better than I can. Our vote is our voice, and our democracy is strongest when every voice is heard. And between the ongoing voter suppression and this pandemic, people are being forced to choose between their physical safety and their democratic rights. And this is a choice that no one should have to make. And we want to ensure that come November, nobody will have to choose between being safe and participating in democracy. So we do hope you'll join us for our Digital Lobby Day on May 20th. It really kicks off with an in-person, with a Zoom meeting, and it closes with a Zoom meeting. And then in between, there are things you can do. So you don't have to be on Zoom from 12 to 5, I promise. But we'll have you kick off and close with us. We're asking federal lawmakers to appropriate $4 billion in funding for states to implement and or expand voter registration, including pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds, no excuse absentee voting by mail, voter education, and safe in-person voting, including early voting for remaining primaries and election day. So I hope you'll all join that day, and I hope you'll continue to fight for us to be able to vote from home. Voting impacts all of the other issues that we're talking about. And so just as I close, I just want to encourage you, I'll put the link in a second to sign on to our COVID-19 package recommendations to Congress, where we will, continue to make the recommendations to include vulnerable populations that continue to get left out. And I know you're also all looking out for your neighbors and taking care of one another in this time. I applaud your work. And I also know that the path ahead is going to be daunting, but we are already doing it. Like, look at how you've changed the event that you were supposed to have and moved it. That means we can also take action in this moment. And NCJW Miami is such a critical organization always, and especially now. And when you get involved, you're really making our entire mission a reality by committing to direct service, advocating from home, And for those in a position to do so, and I know not everybody is, so I say this with like, you know, a moment of love for those who cannot, money really matters right now. And it's important to invest dollars where you can do the most good. And so I just want to share that I wrote a piece earlier this week about this, but very few philanthropic dollars goes to organizations supporting women and girls. And I just shared that those are the populations most impacted right now who need the most support. Only 1.6% of all charitable giving total goes to organizations supporting women and girls. And this is the story in a non-pandemic year. So just imagine what it's going to be like this year as everybody's impacted. So I really hope for the inspiration, for the work, for all the impact that can be with Miami, out of love of your wonderful executive director, Amy, and support for your board, that everybody who can makes a gift to NCJW Miami. I made a donation already. I hope you will join me. And I guess I'll end. I know someone else has a Ruth Bader Ginsburg themed cocktail. I didn't have all the ingredients for the one, Rachel, for the one you recommended. So I just have a Ruth Bader Ginsburg and tonic cocktail next to my RBG figurine, wishing her a speedy recovery. And here's to 100 more years of NCJW Miami thriving. L'chaim, everyone. Thanks for having me.
L'chaim. Thank you, Sheila. And thank you for being an extraordinary leader and model. Thank you. Thank you also Valencia, Gunder, Gail, Schwartz, Ida Eskamani, and Charo, Valero for representing the pillars upon which our section is building its centennial. Huge thanks to our fabulous honorary chairs, Joanie Glickstein and Sharlane Packar, for your wisdom and guidance. And also to our event co-chairs, Rachel Unger, Caren Sepsenwol, and Marissa Zarco Hoffman. Thank you for your hours and ideas, as well as your dedication, fire, and leadership. And thank you to everyone zooming in from all over. You, actually we, are NCJW Miami. All of us here are the NCJW that stands for women, children, and families every day. We are the NCJW that gathers the signatures needed towards restoration of rights for our formerly incarcerated neighbors, that monthly acknowledges our Jewish identity and community through the woman-centered framing of the Jewish year that is Rosh Chodesh. We are the NCJW that prays with our feet for immigrant rights. We are the NCJW that represents the most pressing issues like gun violence and reproductive justice at the Capitol in Tallahassee in honor of Shalom Bayit, peace in our homes, our section, our own lives, and that of our community. We must also be the NCJW that supports this work. So today I ask that if you haven't already, you indeed donate to NCJW Miami in celebration of the community we form around this work for a just world. Our goal today is to mark this moment as we honor our matriarchs and the start of our 100th year in Miami with 100 $100 donations for a total of $10,000. We're at about 70,000 70% there right now. So please join me in giving towards that centennial benchmark and join Sheila as well. Thank you, Sheila. Please visit the link on the screen on our website in the chat to make or increase your donation. We are grateful for your generosity, your community, and your role as the backbone of this work. And on behalf of our dynamic and passionate board, I salute all of you with these fabulous femme-centric cocktails. L'chaim. I'll take a sip. And moving on with our program, I'd like to introduce the inspiring words of Rachel Unger and of Nancy Ratzan. We wanted to share personal NCJW stories today, and here are two that we think will inspire you and make you proud to be a part of this community. Rachel Unger, who you'll hear from first, is a current board member who brings inspiring energy everywhere she goes. Those of you who know her know exactly what I mean. She is an award-winning educator and leads many initiatives in our community, from serving as a trustee and as co-chair of the Social Justice Network of Temple Veshalom to executive committee of People Acting for Community Together, or PACT, to her longtime work with food rescue initiatives. Following Rachel, we are graced to hear from Nancy Ratzan, who is an attorney by profession, who became a social justice warrior when she joined NCJW. She is a member of our section and was national president of NCJW from 2008 to 2011. And during that time, she also served on President Obama's Advisory Council on Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. After her national presidency, she developed a community campaign to respond to sex trafficking of children in Miami, and partnered with Fran Levy, our rising national board member, who is also a past president of our section, to create online platforms for this campaign. Currently, Nancy is the national vice chair of Common Cause, focusing on grassroots pro-democracy reform, including ensuring a fair, secure election for all eligible voters in November. And without further ado, Rachel, we'd love to hear from you.
Actually, I'm sorry, Rachel. I have to do, so Representative Eskamani is on the call, and she actually has a town hall that came up tonight. So she actually needs to jump off. So we need to just move some things around. So I'm sorry to do this to you. Beautiful introductions, Jenny. But now I'm gonna pass it over to Karen Kamlet to introduce Representative Eskamani, and then we're going to hear these beautiful stories from Rachel and Nancy, which are really beautiful. So Karen Kamlet, if you are co-president, if you would jump in, that would be great.
It is my pleasure to introduce our next guest representative, Anna Eskamani. Anna is an Orlando native and daughter of working class immigrants from Iran, as you heard Ida, her twin sister, just share. She has dedicated her life's work to advocating in support of Florida's hardworking families. A UCF graduate, Anna was Senior Director of Public Affairs at Planned Parenthood of Southwest and Central Florida for 7 years. She is now pursuing her PhD in Public Affairs. On November 6, 2018, Anna was elected to serve the great people of House District 47 in Orlando with a vote margin of 57% to 43%, flipping the legislative seat and becoming the first Iranian American elected to any public office in Florida. Wow. Tough, authentic, and unafraid, Anna is a progressive who has proven herself as a leader who works hard, delivers results, and gets things done. Welcome, Representative Eskamani. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And thank you to NCJW. It's amazing to be with you today at this incredible non-event. The fact that there are 150 plus people here zooming in is quite remarkable. And I think it's a reflection of the commitment to this organization and really just your incredible mission. And so congratulations on the centennial. And I'm thrilled that I can be a part of it. And I'm thrilled that my sister could be a part of it as well. And so again, my name is Anna Eskamani. I'm zooming into you from Orlando, Florida, where I proudly serve as a state house representative here in District 47. That encompasses downtown Orlando, Winter Park, and Belle Isle. Our brother actually lives in Miami, so we're down your neck of the woods quite often. And you heard earlier testimonials from some incredible women that I've had the honor to work alongside. Of course, my sister Ida, Charo, Valencia, all these incredible advocates, including Gail Schwartz, fighting for everyday rights of issues that are really, really important to us, not just during COVID-19, but of course, every day. And the unfortunate reality is that in moments where we are in crisis, everyone's impacted in some shape or form, but those that are most vulnerable are impacted the most. And I think we also see that with another shooting taking place in Georgia of a young Black man going for a run, and just seeing the injustice that happened in Georgia back in February that we're only learning about today. And so it's so critically important that we approach every issue with an intersectional lens. And I think that NCJW is one of the organizations that does that so well. And your leadership, both in the state of Florida and in the capital in Tallahassee, is unmatched. And we're always so grateful to have you as advocates across the state. With that said, my twin sisters shared a little bit about our personal story and our personal journey. And I'm very lucky to have her by my side, because it has not been always easy for us growing up as the daughter of immigrants. And we grew up in a working class family. My parents never had a lot of money. We had a whole lot of love, but money was tight.
Our parents, like my sister said, came from 2 different parts of Iran, but actually met in Orlando working at the same donut shop. So it really is an incredible love story, the American way. And they had 3 kids, and my older brother and my sister and I, and we did everything we could to achieve the American dream. We went to public school, K through 12. My parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. In fact, our dad went to UCF in 1994, got a degree in electrical engineering, but still struggled to make ends meet. So he actually worked at Walt Disney World on the weekends as he was an engineer on the weekdays, just so that we could pay our bills on time. Our mom, on the other hand, she actually had a degree from Iran she couldn't use here. So she worked at fast food restaurants, including McDonald's, and then eventually worked at Kmart, where she was a manager over some of the departments there. And there were many late nights where my sister and I would be at Kmart with our mom, helping her to fold clothes and clean the shelves so she could get home at a decent time. Now, everything in our life changed when our mom was diagnosed with cancer back in around 2010, 2009. And I became one of her primary caregivers during that moment. And for anyone who's lost a loved one or has seen a loved one struggle to survive, you know that pain and that trauma, it always sticks to you. It's no matter how old you are, it's always a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. In our case, we watched her mom fight every day to see her kids grow up, and she didn't make it. She passed away back in 2004. This month, my sister and I will both be 30 years old, so we've lived life a lot longer without a mom than with a mom. And I'll tell you that that type of loss, it really not only never leaves you, but it pushes you to honor those who are no longer with us through action. And I felt at a very young age a commitment that I never wanted any parent to lose a kid, any kid to lose a parent, if it could be avoided. And that was my motivation from day one to start getting more involved in politics and in civics. And actually, my first attempt at organizing was when I was 10 years old. And my best friend at the time was being moved to a different class, thus a different lunch period. And I refused to let that happen because all politics is local. And so I organized a petition to keep her in my classroom. And unfortunately, I lost that fight. I never stopped organizing for things that I cared about. And I was very lucky to have an incredible AP government teacher in my public high school. And he just helped to bring government alive and really helped teach women's issues, taught immigrant issues, elevated the status quo and how it wasn't good enough. And I knew going out of high school that when I went to UCF that I would at least minor in political science, that minor would eventually become a major alongside women's studies. And so I basically dived deep into feminist theory and defined my manifesto, if you will, of caring about these issues from a lens that directly impacts women and girls. Now, my Planned Parenthood story, as Charo so eloquently spoke about reproductive health rights and justice, for me was very much grounded in being a patient. I had absence-only education in my school, and if folks have heard of that type of education before, you'll know that it's not really education. And they use myths, they use misinformation, fear tactics to try to deter young people from engaging in sexual activity, when the reality is that none of it actually stops them. And they're gonna make decisions that are not healthy. They're gonna make decisions that could put themselves and those they care about at risk. And so I found myself at age 18 looking for answers, and I walked into a Planned Parenthood health center by myself, my first ever medical appointment, on my own, and was just so taken aback by the love, by the empathy, and by the support in feeling a sense of empowerment that I had control over my body and I could make these decisions on my own. And when I left that health center with birth control in my hand, I knew that other women and girls needed to feel this same strength and needed to have this access. So I started volunteering at my local Planned Parenthood Health Center as a health center escort, walking patients inside when we have protesters outside. And through that volunteerism, I eventually was hired at Planned Parenthood and began serving at a very entry-level role, doing events management, and then eventually became the the Senior Director of Public Affairs and Communications for about 7 years, based out of the Southwest Central Florida affiliate. So my service area was more from Brevard County all the way to the Gulf, down to Naples, and up to Citrus County through Tampa. And I have to tell you that when you work at Planned Parenthood, you can do anything. And so it really was those experiences that built my resilience to be able to take on some of the biggest political fights in this state. And that was my exposure to the legislature. For folks who have been to Tallahassee before, you know that Tallahassee is incredibly disconnected from what's happening every day in our communities. And whether it's issues around healthcare disparities or programs like SNAP, support for kids and adults with disabilities, you know, Tallahassee time and time again does not prioritize what we see every day in our neighborhoods, what we see every day in our lived experiences. The violence that we see, whether it's against the Jewish people or against our Black and brown brothers and sisters, right? I mean, we know it, we see it, and yet the legislature completely ignores it and prioritizes other interests that are typically grounded in political donors than what's good for the state. And I saw this happening time and time again. And despite understanding the problems, I still never thought I would be someone to run for office and to be in a place where I could fix it. I just didn't think that a little brown girl with a funny last name in an area like Orlando would be able to take that leap and be successful. And everything changed for me after 2016. When President Trump won, I felt like that there needed to be some sort of just groundbreaking change, or we were going to be stuck with the same old, with the same type of political rhetoric, with public officials of any political background, not understanding or empathizing with folks that were more concerned with the title than with the service. And that really was my motivation to say, all right, Anna, like, less talking. Like, if you're going to do this, you got to do this. And I actually, one of my journeys to try to get comfortable with the idea of running for office was I wrote what I would say if I lost. And I did that because I wanted to accept the reality that, like, failing is an option, right? When you take risk, you might not make it through. So I wanted to just accept the fact that I have to be comfortable with the discomfort of losing, and I have to embrace that, especially as a woman who's running, not because she's looking for a title, because she's looking for a role to play in her community. And that rejection is very personal at that point. So I wanted to accept that. But the other part about writing what I would say if I lost was to identify the victories and loss. And for me, it came in several ways. One was I knew even running for the first time, being a fresh candidate, would be an opportunity to look at things in a different way and to elevate conversations that most folks are too scared to talk about. Many of the topics that we've talked about today are ones that most politicians kind of shy away from because they're controversial or could lead to political consequences. And I didn't want to have to care about that. I wanted to say it because it needed to be said. And even if I didn't win, the conversation would have been had. But the other part for me of victory and loss was the fact that we were building a new generation of young people who cared about these issues, folks that have never been engaged in politics ever in their life, or who felt disenchanted because of 2016, would feel a sense of commitment to service. And it wouldn't just stop with voting, it would start with voting, and they would get involved in different ways. And I knew that we would be building new leaders every day. And in fact, this campaign that we ran, my first one back in 2018, we recruited over 500 volunteers. We raised more than $523,000 from 4,000 donations. We knocked on 40,000 doors. And we did our part to lift up the voices of people who typically don't have a seat at the table, women and girls included. And sure enough, we flipped our seat by 15 points. I never had to use that speech that I wrote. I tore it up on election night. And we remain committed to this mission now as an elected official. And it's so important to me that we always honor, lift up the voices of those that are directly impacted. And as we've already painted for you tonight, directly impacted people often are going to be women and girls. It's going to be our religious minorities. It's going to be folks that are low income, undocumented, incarcerated. And every day, you know, I sit in some of the driest committees. And actually, I was removed from a committee because I was too vocal on public education, which is kind of like a badge of honor. But the committees that I still serve on in the legislature are incredibly dry. And typically, most folks avoid them because it can get kind of just, you know, in the numbers, in the weeds. But I've been really proud to focus on these committees and to ensure that we talk about taxes from a lens of working people, that we talk about local control, that we talk about government transparency and accountability from the lens of an everyday Floridian and what that means to them. And of course, while I tackle these topics in committee, then we're prepared for the biggest fights on the House floor around abortion access, LGBTQ rights, public education and funding, to gun safety and everything else in between, like climate change. And so I'm so proud to do this work, and I'm proud to do it alongside you. And I just want to express, you know, once more, my gratitude to the women in my life, because like my sister mentioned earlier, we lost our mom at a very young age. And so there has been so many other moms who've adopted me in different ways. And I'm forever grateful to all the women in my life who have inspired me, who have believed in me, who supported me. You know, Mother's Day is coming up, which can be very bittersweet for my sister and I. But then I think about all the chosen moms, if you will, in this world that have made a decision to be a part of my life. And it just fills me with so much joy. And so I thank you again for this invitation, and I thank you all for your leadership. You know, I know that once we get out of COVID-19, we're going to be stronger together, and we're going to have a lot of fights ahead of us, whether they're COVID specific or these issues that intersect health disparities that motivate us every day to get up and to do this good work. And so again, thank you to everyone. So many blessings, you know, cheers to you on your centennial. And I can't wait to share space with you. Hopefully it'll actually be in person in the future. So Amy, thank you. Carrie, thank you. Jenny, thank you so much to everyone. And have a beautiful, beautiful non-event.
Thank you so much, Representative. It was so great to hear from you. I hope that you knock some socks off in your meeting that you're going to. Thank you for being with us. Speaking of knocking socks off, I just want to take this moment to thank a few more people. I want to first thank all of our NCJW sisters who may have zoomed in from all over the country from other sections, including our national president, Beatrice Khan, our, I guess, outgoing national president. It's so great to have everybody here and to really feel this sense of community nationally this way. And I also want to thank someone who's very much been a mentor to me and Caren and Amy in our process and the whole board. And that's Laura Rodriguez, who is one of our vice presidents on our board. She's amazing. We've become very close. I think she and I speak every day. She's now on my speed dial. Anyway, she's really guided us in an extraordinary way. I also wanted to say, since we had a little change of plan, I wanted to just remind you that the next speakers are Rachel Unger, who is the amazing educator and activist in our community that I mentioned to you, and Nancy Ratzan, who is so much a guiding light in our community, both locally and nationally. So thank you, and Rachel, take it away.
So, wow, that was an incredible speech. Thank you so much, Representative Eskamani. And thank you, Jenny, for introducing me not once, but twice. That was incredible as well. I am very excited to be here with you all tonight. So I will begin my NCJW story. On July 28th, 1978, I was born. Beverly and Stephen Unger were made parents for the third time, but this time was a first. I was their first girl. My parents raised me to be a seeker of truths and to have a firm commitment in doing what is right and kind. I was surrounded in my childhood with many examples of integrity, honesty, empathy, and the fight for equality. My parents showed me how to work hard and to make sure that I was always aware of what others' needs may be. I learned to fight hard for what I stand for and to always try to be a voice for those that may not be heard. I am a firm believer in engaging with others through justice work. As an adult, I began working with Temple Beth Shalom and their social justice network. With Rabbi Pomerantz, a true mentor, I began on this journey of justice work and advocacy so that I could show my children, Max and Ellie, the importance of standing up for what you believe in, even if it means you have to fight for it. We've advocated for the coalition of Immokalee farm workers. We've canvassed on behalf of Amendment 4. We've stood arm in arm with others and demanded the shutdown of the Homestead Detention Center. We marched for our lives in Washington, D.C. We've engaged in beach cleanups and food rescues, and we will continue this work as they become adults. It is so important to teach your children well, as my parents taught me. Through all of this justice work, I met Amy Bloom. We met at an event where we were having an intimate sit-down conversation with Desmond Meade, who ran the campaign for voter restoration for former felons in Florida. Needless to say, the meeting was amazing, and Amy and I became fast friends in the work towards the betterment of our community. Amy graciously invited me to NCJW events. I went alone. I really went alone, not knowing I would know anyone at the event at all. The content of the events allowed me to be eager to attend. After the first event, I realized there were so many familiar faces. The programming was exceptional and checked off all the boxes I needed. They were motivational, they were interesting, and they were very well organized, like tonight, around topics that I want to be engaged and involved in. So fast forward, and here we are. I'm the co-chair of this fantastic and groundbreaking mother of all non-events, and have formed bonds with so many people that I work with through NCJW. Without Amy and the other members continually putting together fantastic programming, I may not be here tonight. Not enough can be said for the idea that if you are asked by someone to do something or to attend an event, it makes it that much more meaningful. I am thrilled to be a part of this formidable organization, a member of the board, and a leader going forward as we kick off our centennial campaign. 100 years of the NCJW Miami section. I am so lucky and truly blessed to be a part of this. I thank Amy for always inviting me to attend NCJW events. I thank my parents for raising me to be composed of fierce and unfaltering energy towards justice. I thank my kiddos and my husband, Mike, for allowing me the time to do all of this advocacy. And I thank all of the NCJW Miami members, past and present, for creating a foundation that is undeniably strong and will lead us to greatness in advocacy going forward. I am here to partner with other community organizations and NCJW to be a team in working towards justice. I will fight for immigrants' rights and equality. I will work until everyone can vote and be civically engaged. I will not let up in the call for reproductive rights and equality, and I will keep fighting for an end to gun violence. As Rabbi Cook states, I don't speak because I have the power to speak. I speak because I don't have the power to remain silent. Thank you, NCJW, for allowing me to express that power. Now, it is my honor and privilege to welcome a dear friend, Nancy Ratzan, Honorary Past President of NCJW Inc., to share her story.
Thank you, Rachel. Wow, that was fantastic. This is an incredible night. If I wasn't a member for 30 years now, I would join tonight. This is amazing. So when I was asked to tell my NCJW story, I was inclined to begin with my first experience in NCJW 30 years ago. But as I reflected, I realized that my story and my alignment in NCJW began much earlier, began long before I ever knew of NCJW. So I'm going to briefly begin there because I think that evolution is going to resonate with a lot of you. And I heard it in a lot of the stories tonight. And I think it's how we found our way to this shared place that we have in NCJW and the justice world. So in my highly condensed story, I'd say there's three really defining parts of my core constitution that were developed in my formative years and my early 20s that created this foundation for my eventual NCJW story. First, my Jewish soul, which I found and really owned on the high school in Israel in 1973, where I became a Zionist, a very proud Jewess, and where I began this quest to live a Jewish life so that I could be a light unto others and somehow figure out how to do that. Another part of my early core development was my passion for justice and for taking action. As far back as I can remember, I was an idealist and I wanted to be a doer and not a bystander. So when it came to choosing my education and my career path, I had my first big rebellion against my father, and I chose not to become a doctor as he wanted me to, and I chose instead to do what I really needed to do, and I became a lawyer because I wanted to speak out, I wanted to act, and I wanted to bring justice to those who can't do that for themselves. And then the third core of my constitution really came into formation and in my mid-20s into my early 30s, as I was learning through my own struggles in life that seeking justice generally was not enough, that I needed to seek justice through a lens of being a feminist, that the way I could write the script of my life and make the choices I needed to make in my life, the way every other woman could write her script and do that, was for me to seek justice as a feminist. And so there I was in my young 30s, living this big and full life, married, a mom, expecting a second child, a partner in a big law firm, participating in various pieces of the organized Jewish world. But I was actually living this very compartmentalized life where my Jewish soul and my justice passion and my feminist commitment were never fully exposed and integrated and flourishing simultaneously in any part of my life. So I took a deep breath and I took a sabbatical from practicing law, and I got this incredible invitation from Joanie Glickstein to come to her house along with about a dozen other 30-somethings, many who are on this gathering tonight, to learn about the National Council of Jewish Women. And I couldn't believe what I found there. I found this place that existed with this cohort of women who spanned generations, locally, nationally, internationally, who are just like me. They're inspired by their Jewish values. They're committed to progressive change. They're focused on women and girls and the most vulnerable among us. And they believe in their collective power to create change. And so I finally found this home, this place that I could deliver all of me and actually live this fully integrated life of impact. And so I jumped right in. Back then in 1990, the leadership of our section was ready to pass the baton of leadership to this new small group of 30-somethings so that we could define the future of our section and our work in NCJW. And it's actually very much like the time we're in right now, where the baton of leadership was recently passed to Jenni and Caren and a board of many new leaders, and the three incredible women leading tonight, and at the national level onto Sheila. And I, like them, seized that opportunity to engage and use my skills and my passion to act collectively and engage with like-souled women to make this world juster and safer, and to really create a place that was inclusive of everyone, and work on the issues that were really the most important justice issues that I believe in. And a few years after that local baton was passed to me, I had the honor of being elected to the national board of NCJW, and where I was mentored by women from around the country who showed me how to have this big, meaningful impact in the justice world. And they entrusted me to use my voice and my skills to be a national leader in the movement of NCJW. And as I look back, it's really the mentorship and the entrustment that has defined my experience at NCJW. It's what has allowed me to be become that light unto others that I was so seeking to be, and to advance issues that are really fundamental to the justice world and fundamental to me. And then in 2008, I was given the greatest privilege. I was elected as national president of NCJW. And from that space, I worked closely with women around the country, professional staff and volunteers on all the issues and all the platforms that really make justice move forward in this country. And it was a challenging time, and it was also an incredible time. All of us walked into the 2008 financial crisis, and like every other organization, we needed to revision and reorganize internally, and we got to work doing that. And at the same time, we had this incredible opportunity with a new president of the White House who flung open the doors of the White House to the voice of NCJW, and we worked very closely with President Obama and his administration over and over again to collaborate and to bring the voice of progressive Jewish women to every table and to create really great and meaningful conversation and opportunity and vision and change. And what I've really learned on this amazing journey of NCJW that serves me every day is that I am my best when I take my whole self into the moment. And no matter where I am, no matter who is at the table, no who isn't at the table, I bring my Jewish soul, I bring my justice commitment, I bring my feminist lens, and I deliver as best I can to make this world a better place. And I have found extraordinary fulfillment from that. And I'm so grateful for that. And so tonight I want to toast to all the hundreds of women who have mentored and empowered me in NCJW and helped me to become this justice warrior. And I want to make a very special toast tonight to my mom, Millicent Swerdlow, who from the very beginning and always encouraged me to write my script, to go out in this world and live this full, spirited, unedited life. I hope I'm doing that for my daughters too, and for everyone that I've had a chance to mentor. So thank you, Mom. I'm really proud to be your daughter. And then I'm proud to turn this program over to the three women who have chaired tonight and stepped up to NCJW. And I can't wait to see you write your NCJW story.
Wow. Thank you so much, Nancy, and to Rachel for sharing your NCJW stories. Thank you all for sticking with us throughout this evening. It's been incredibly inspiring. We hope that you've really gotten a lot out of tonight's program. I want to again thank Representative Eskamani for all of her hard work in Orlando and Tallahassee, to Sheila Katz for sharing with us what is happening on a national level and with the other sections across the country. We are all part of something so much greater than Miami.
A huge thank you to our amazing panel who will be joining us for a deeper dive over the next 4 weeks, beginning next Wednesday, May 13th at 7 p.m. At each session, we will take action together and learn about how we can continue to support the work of these justice warriors and take action supporting each of these causes that they fight for every day. We invite you to join us. Check out our website for more information, and we will send out the details very soon.
And thank you to all of you for joining tonight and supporting NCJW's mission and work. Check out our website for our other programs as well. Rosh Chodesh, a spiritual gathering for women. We've Got You Covered, creating blankets for cancer patients at Mount Sinai Cancer Treatment Center. NCJW's teen program. Our Listen and Engage Leadership Development Program, which is launching for the 3rd year and is partially funded by Greater Miami Jewish Federation. And our newest program, Deep Dive with tonight's panelists, beginning next Wednesday at 7 p.m. We have a lot of work to do, and we cannot do it alone. We invite you to join us, to partner with us, because we will always be stronger together. We have a faith in the future and a belief in action. And of course, reach out to us if you need help, and we will always find a way to help you. In concluding the Mother of All Non-Events, Let's raise our glasses and toast once again.
Here's to the next 100 years of taking action to make our community a better place for our daughters and granddaughters and our sons and grandsons.
We hope that you stay well and safe and that you have a very happy Mother's Day this Sunday. L'chaim, good night.
Good night.
Cheers. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight.